the modern day prospect, they have their guard up against the salesman. The typical salesperson is, hey, you said yes, yes, yes. And people catch on.
Because your tone is how your prospect interprets the intention behind the questions you ask. So when you said, I was really good at sales because I knew how to show empathy, their brain was interpreting that as, I can trust him. Trust is where the sale is made.
Absolutely.
100%. Why does it have to be a numbers game? In the beginning, it was a numbers game because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. As I got better and better and better, it just became less of a numbers game and more of a skills game, where I was more focused on the words I was saying. I was more focused on the questions that I was asking. I was more focused on my tonality. It's like my pet peeve is when people are like, hey, how do I get better at pitching, Jeremy? How do I get better at my pitch?
Thank you.
You're not understanding what selling is. Like if your mindset is like, I'm pitching. How does society view pitching at large? They view it at a lower status. How do they view salespeople in general? At a lower status. Even if you make $500,000 a year, they still will view you at a lower status than somebody who makes 50 grand.
This is why the sales industry has such a stigma. And this is part of what I'm set on my career to help improve this journey, is this stigma around salespeople.
Selling, like if you want to be a top 1% earner, like you were in the industry and everything, make all this money, you have to view selling as...
I go into a deal thinking if I walk out this door and they don't buy, it's not my loss. I don't feel that as like, oh, you suck. It's like a genuine sorrow.
You're concerned for their situation. They're gonna have to keep paying the rate hikes. Well, if you don't get them to expand, they don't feel any pain. And what's the number one emotional driver in a human being that causes them to want to change?
Pain.
It's pain or the fear of future pain.
FOMO.
So if you can't help them relive pain, they don't feel any need to change. And if they don't feel any need to change, that's why you get all the objections, and that's why you lose sales.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the show. We got Jeremy Miner here with me today.
Nick, thanks for having me in studio. I wanted to fly up here just because I love Utah. This is where I went to college. I had my corporate career here. So anytime I get a chance or an excuse to come to Utah, I'm in.
I love it, man.
It wasn't a hard sale.
I love it. Well, guys, let me give you a quick bio on this guy. He is next level. We've been chatting for about 30 minutes. I just gained so much more respect for him. We met at Funnel Hacking Live, Russell Brunson's marketing event last September. Yeah, it's fun. So Jeremy is an international sales trainer and speaker. So here's a couple big things. All right. So he's got a book. It's called The New Model of Selling. Co-authored with this, right?
Yeah, with Jerry Acuff. Jerry Acuff, a good friend of mine, he owns a large sales consulting firm on the East Coast. He specializes in like pharmaceutical sales, like Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca are his clients. So he has like 15 clients, but like they're the 15 biggest companies in the world. I'm like, I just want 15 clients too. That's really nice. But yeah, they can go to Barnes and Noble if they ever want to get that book.
I love it.
It's a good one.
New Model of Selling. We're going to dive into some of the stuff in here. And then he is the host of Closers or Losers podcast. Right? You co-host that?
I know. Crazy marketing name. Do you like the name?
Oh, dude, I actually love the name. At first I was like, what the hell does he even mean by this? But
that's exactly why we did it. Because it pisses salespeople off. They're like, I'm a closer. I'm not a loser.
Dude, so we're going to geek out on this topic, Jeremy, because this resonates with my soul, and seeing other sales trainers push kind of an opposite agenda with their Master Closer seminar. Yeah. So, but his podcast gets 400,000 downloads a month. His Facebook groups and pages have over about 650,000 followers. He is ranked number one fastest growing sales training company in the last 2 years by Inc. Magazine and Inc. 5000. And more impressively,
Selling Power Magazine?
Selling Power Magazine. Yeah. So
that's the one. It's the only. It's like my little baby. It's like the only one I'm like really proud of, because all the other stuff is like the Heisman Trophy. Yeah. I always say to people, you don't want to be the Heisman Trophy winner. You know, the guy or a girl from high school that just talks about high school all the time and how good the glory days were, and they were the star of the football team,
the fat old guy.
Yeah, and now they're nothing. And I'm like, well, you're just the Heisman Trophy winner. Like you got to play in the NFL now. Like you got to raise your game, otherwise nobody remembers the guy that won all the awards in high school.
Agreed, man. It's so true. So this is the big one, because Selling Power Magazine actually vets out. They call your customers, they talk to your clients, they really do investigating
to see. It's based on your financials too. So you can't, like a lot of like the thing that, here I go. I digress. So what annoys us at Seventh Level, because we're weirdos, but we always get annoyed by companies like, oh, I'm in, this magazine and that magazine, because we're like, well, yeah, but you paid for it.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Who cares? Like, and I get it. Like when we first started, I will be the first one to admit that we paid to be in Forbes or whatever the first couple of times. Everybody does. Yeah. I understand. But as you get bigger, you're like, so the cool thing about the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies list and Selling Power magazine is actually based on your financials. So you have to prove it. You have to send in financials from your certified accounting firm. Yeah. Right. They have to sign off on it. So if they waffle, they could get in trouble if there's an investigation. So it's like, it's like legit. It's like they go through your financials, they compare everybody that submits those, and they go off client results.
I love that.
Yeah. Those two things, client results, revenue, those should be really the two things you need to focus on with any company, especially sales training.
So you made the top 20 on that list, which we did, roughly around number 9, which is unreal.
We roughly around number 9 with revenue. And I can't say, but he said with client results, we have the most testimonials. We have over 18,000 testimonials.
I love it. Well, it's because there's no BS. It's not a bunch of hype stuff, it's actual psychology based persuasion.
We're pretty boring.
Oh man, I know. I love it. It's the stuff I geek out on. So he is basically the creator of the NEPQ selling system
methodology. Yeah.
And they're doing about 48 million, on pace for 48 million this year in revenue, which is unreal.
It's not bad. I mean, first, it's really small for most companies. I talk to like solar companies, like, horrible year. We did 600 million. I'm just like, I know. You guys have a little bit of advantage over us. Like sales training, we're like,
it's crazy.
We're in the top 10 in the world, and we're still at this level. It seems so small, but it's just a difference.
Whenever you hear solar, because talking to a guy who owns a solar company, it's usually less than 10% of total revenues net. So sales training industry, higher, a little bit different. Yeah. So it's not apples to apples there.
Yeah.
And you've helped over 459,000 salespeople in 158 different industries. This is what I admire, because I've trained salespeople.
That's an old bio.
That's old, and that's outdated.
My EA sent you an outdated bio. Well, can I brag a little bit?
Yeah. Oh, please. You got the stage, man.
So we train like 500. It's like over 550,000.
I love it.
So I think that was from like a year ago or like 8 months ago. I'm like, the stats are off. And what was the other one that you said there?
The ranked number 1 fastest growing, and then ranked number 9.
Yeah. But there was something after the 400 some.
158 different industries.
Over 161 now.
Let's go.
Now,
wow.
Here's how that changed, because we didn't know this, but like if you go, the reason why, and it's a lot of people like when I tried to, like a couple of years ago, I'm like, I remember I went to like, how many industries are there? Because I was like, we train all these industries. Like, how many industries are there in the world? Like I Googled it, and it pulled up this Forbes this article, and there's this is a couple of years ago, there was 158 industries. I'm like, how is there only 158 industries? That makes zero sense. There's got to be thousands. But the way they classify them is like, if you're familiar with like home improvement industry, so like the home improvement industry,
alarms,
home improvement is like, home improvement would be like, cabinet repair or makeover, countertops, siding, doors, windows, sheds, decks. I mean, carpet, that would be the home improvement, but yet those are almost different industries in themselves, but they're categorized in home improvement. Like home improvement's like the 6th or 7th largest industry we train.
Right.
And like real estate, you think like real estate agents, well, it's not just that. It's real estate agents residential, real estate agents commercial, and it's real estate where you call maybe distressed properties, right? And you buy the home and flip it. Like all of that is included in the real estate industry. Wow. So they, like the door-to-door industry would be like, solar, alarms, pest control. It could be landscaping. It could be energy. It could be vacuum cleaners. I mean, there's all that aspect there too. So it's quite fascinating. So every year they come out with, different industries, because there's some industries that go away or they get smaller. So they get put in a different group. And then there's other industries that just happen. Once COVID happened, there were just other industries that just were made, you never heard of it before because it didn't exist, and now it's an industry. So it's quite fascinating.
This is awesome, Jeremy. What's fascinating to me is, so I've trained various industries in sales, and it's a different beast. So I'm close with Sean Calgi, who's Tony Robbins' go-to sales guy, and same with Chris Crone. So I'm good friends with him.
I wish, dude, how do you get to know all these cool guys? Like I feel like
these events, the events, networking.
I don't know.
Oh, stop!
I never get invited to these cool things.
Russell Brunson.
I was on a plane coming here. And this guy, this attorney, he was like, "Hey, I saw you at this event you spoke at for WealthCon with Ryan. What's his name? Ryan. Ryan, I love you.
Panetta.
I always have a hard time pronouncing his name.
Yeah.
Ryan. I'm sorry.
We love you, Ryan.
I apologize. I represent Ryan, and I also represent this one guy. And he told me this guy is like, he's known as the muscle. And I'm like,
Oh yeah.
What's the
here in
muscle?
Utah. Yep.
What's the muscle? He's in Utah. Where you're going? I was like, what's his IG? I look him up and he's like, yeah, he's so cool. Like I'm his attorney and nothing but great things to say. And he's like, yeah, you know, all the, you know, influencers were invited up to some Limitless party or something like a month or two ago. And I'm like, well, bro, we didn't get invited, man. We're not in part of the cool crowd. You know, what are we going to do?
Dude, I'm thinking it's, you know, they had Andy Elliott or you. And so
he's probably a lot cooler than us.
Stop.
I have no idea, man.
No. We'll talk about that.
I don't know Andy. He's probably a cool guy, but yeah, I'm just like, how do I get invited to the cool parties? Like you know, we're looking on the outside, just kind of looking in, like hoping that we get invited one day.
Well, dude, it's amazing. It's amazing the success you guys have had with what you guys have. I find it fascinating, Jeremy.
You know, we're learning every day, man. You know, we make mistakes. You know, when you grow that fast, you know, and you probably know this, but when you grow that fast, a lot of people are like, "Oh my gosh, you're growing so fast." But there's sometimes a lot of headache. There's actually a lot of headaches growing fast because you know we have 160 some employees now. For a sales training company, that's a lot. 160 employees. I know, you know, like coming from like Vivint or something like, you know, that's just, you know, the you know, half of the little department over there, you know, but for a sales training company, that's a lot of people. And so, you know, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, you guys are doing so well. I'm like, yeah, we're doing really well. But when you grow that fast, you literally sometimes are like throwing bodies into positions that do not probably deserve to be there just because they don't have the credentials, right? We, you know, like, oh, this guy's, you know, he's, you know, below average at sales. Why don't we move him over to the operations? He seemed like he's analytical. He'd be good at operations. Let's go over here. You know, we just throw him in there. And so this year we like purposely slowed down our growth. Like in 2024, we're purposely slowing down our growth where we don't grow more than 50%. You know, last year we still grew like a little bit over 400 some percent. The year before was like 1600%. And so we're just like slowing down our growth so we can plug in the holes and get the right people in some of those positions.
Dude, I love that because it shows that you really value your customer experience.
We value the brand and the fulfillment of the clients far more than the money we make.
And let that speak to just the sales industry in general. It's amazing.
If you want a long-term brand, that's not just going to be here for a few years or 5 years that fizzles out. If you want to be around 20 years from now, 30 years from now, like, you know, when I'm not even here, like the way we've set up our organization, like it will still roll on. Like if I get hit by a bus today, NEPQ will still roll on because it's not just brand around me, it's brand around the methodology.
I love it, man. You're building a legacy. So Jeremy, guys, to give you perspective, has had multiple seven-figure years in commissions in sales rep.
Oh, when I was a rep,
as a rep, and coming from I haven't even cleared 8 figures yet. I've cleared 7 figures in commissions, but
That's
you have
good,
cleared
man. It's
8
really
figures.
It's really good.
And you're 46 years old. Give the people a quick rundown, Jeremy, on like your work history. You started back in door to door. You did a mission, right?
Yeah. So
something you and I can connect on.
I'm LDS. I need to go back to church. I go to church.
Makes 2 of us.
I know my bishop's probably like yelling at me. There you are. I started in door-to-door sales. So I went to school here in Utah. I think I told you that before. Yeah, UVU, Utah Valley University for those of you who might not know where that's at, for you outsiders, you know. And so I went there and my degree was behavioral science and I was had a minor in social dynamics. And I was also studying world religions. I'm kind of a historical geek. But it's really the study of the brain. I won't get the scientific terms because I'm worried about it. It's like the study of the brain and how the brain processes things, how it makes decisions. Why does it say no compared to saying yes? Why does it see a sign that says go left and just automatically go left like a sheep? Why does it actually do that? Like the brain fascinated me. I have no idea. Since I was on my mission, knocking on doors, I just learned how to like just kind of read people's body language and like listen to more of what they meant, not just what they said, if that makes sense. And I didn't know what I was doing, right? Because I didn't, you know, I went to school for 1 year before. It was just like gen ed. But when I got back and I started like really studying the brain from behavioral science, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what I was doing. I was connecting the dots. Like I'm like, man, if I would have known this, it would have been way better, more effective. And so I remember I got that job. So basically, I don't know how it is now. It almost feels like a whole another lifetime to me. You ever notice that? And I'll go back. You ever notice like every couple of years you're like in a different life? Your life has changed so much.
Oh, absolutely. It's humbling, man. It's
You're
crazy how fast it moves.
3 years ago, I'm here and now I'm here. Like, it's just crazy, right? It could be good or bad or whatever, a combination of both. But I remember a friend of mine, I just got back from my mission, maybe 3-4 months. He came into the dorms. I was staying at Raintree Apartments. Is that still there in Provo, Utah?
I actually don't know.
That was in Provo, Utah.
Yeah.
So I went to school at Orem. I wasn't smart enough to get into the Y.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And so
that makes two of us.
There you go. So I was in Raintree Apartments. I don't know if it's still there. And my buddy comes running. He's like, "Hey man," he's like, "there's this meeting at the campus," or it was like right off the campus. He's like, "They've got free pizza. And it's like, you can make all this money," like literally something like crazy. He's like, "You can make all this money and you sell these alarms and you just have to work in the summer and you make enough money in summer. You don't have to go to school in the rest of the year." Yeah. He's like, "We should go check it out." Yeah. So me and like the 3 of the roommates, we just get in the car and we drive there. And there's like maybe 80 people there.
Pizza.
We got pizza. Everybody gets hired, right? Because it's straight commission.
You got a pulse. You're on.
You're on. We can teach you how to sell. And so I remember, like this was probably like, I want to say like maybe February or March. And then like 2 months later, I'm up in freaking Boise, Idaho, and they give you a script and a couple books by the sales gurus, and they're like, "Hey, go make some sales." I still remember this interesting because I was telling this story at a keynote I did the other day. Yeah. I remember, I don't know how they had it when you got into doors, but back in the day when I was there, they would quite literally, the first couple of years, they would take you out in a van. Like there would be these big vans. So the first company I got hired from was a company called Safe Home Security, which eventually became Pinnacle Security. Yeah. They drive you out in a van, and they basically like, kick you out of the van and like, go make some sales. It's going to be easy. We'll pick you up after dark. That's kind of the macho. And I'm like, okay, it's going to be easy. They told me it's going to be easy. I still remember my sales manager's name was Exane because he had the craziest name. It was Exane, EXAY. I've never heard it. It's like Exane Anderson, blonde hair, just a stud, just a cool guy, like total surfer dude. He's like, "Yo, Miner." So he's like, "Hey, Miner, just remember, be excited. When you knock on the door, show them that you believe in the product, show them your enthusiasm, and they're going to believe in the product and they're going to want to buy." So I'm like, that makes complete sense. Like if I'm excited about it, if I show them I believe in it, then somehow they're going to believe in it too. What did I know? It was like 21, almost 22. So I started knocking on doors, talking about the features and benefits and how we had the number one this and we had the best this and it was going to protect them this and all this stuff.
At that time, did you feel like you were truly sold on the product?
Man.
For the information you had, did you have the conviction, you think?
Yeah, I think I did. Yeah, I believed in it for sure. And they really like product knowledge and everything. But as soon as I'm like talking about it, I was all excited. And from the first door, I noticed I was getting these objections, and I was like, "What? They didn't tell me about all these objections. What's going on? We don't need it. We can't afford it. Your prices are too high. We don't have the money for it. Somebody from your company came around 2 months ago. There was other ones like, I need to talk to my spouse. I need to think it over. I need to do more research. I'm interested. Can you call me back in a week, a month, a year later?" Right? You notice those when you first started. You started with pest control, right? Started in a solar, then moved to pest. Started solar and pest control.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I did 180K.
That's a whole different ball game there. Yeah, because you're going from like small, like larger. A little bit larger of a sale there to like a small, like monthly. Right?
Yeah, most guys go to pest and then like, "Oh, hey, I can do this," and then graduate. I started solar, did really well.
Interesting.
Made 65K, which today would have been about 185,000.
Yeah, the pay scales are so different. Back in even alarms, people are like, we'll have a client that gets into like our advanced inner circle program, and it's more for like individual salespeople in any industry. And they're smaller groups, and I'll they'll be like, "Oh, I sell alarms," and I'll ask them about their compensation, and I'm like, "You get paid that much per sale?"
They just keep bumping.
I'm like, what? Like I did almost 400 installed accounts in a summer period.
Jeez,
like
Jeremy.
when I was there, you only counted
legendary back in your day.
You only counted installs, and you only had the 4 months in the summer. Like if you sold anything before or after, it was just like you made money, but you couldn't count it like as your summer total,
right?
Because we had some people like, "Oh, I did 600." I'm like, "Really? That's crazy. That's amazing." It's like, "Yeah, man, I worked like 11 months last year." And I'm like, 11 months? I thought it was a summer program. What are you talking about? So it was like 380 some accounts, 89, 90 accounts are installed. right?
Wow.
Back then that was a lot.
Oh,
I don't know
dude,
how
the
much
record,
that is now.
the record I've ever heard was like in the 500s.
Yeah. Now you guys have, the alarm guys have a big advantage now, because this one client that we have that's crushing it. He's like, yeah, we have this app where when we walk by the houses, it tells us what their credit is.
Yeah.
So we only knock on the ones that have good credit. I'm like,
saves time.
What the?
You're like, if I had that, dude, I would have done 600.
You had no idea. Like I literally would have done at least 600, because there'd be some homes I'd sell like 5 straight. If they dropped you off in the hood, I'd sell 5 or 6 straight before one passed. And I'd waste like 15, 20, 25 minutes with each person. If I didn't have to, if I could just walk around the homes that could pass, good Lord. Oh my gosh. I was a little bit upset about that. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so I 7 to 8 weeks in, I wasn't doing that well. Mm-hmm. Straight commission, you don't make sales, you don't make any money. I remember this one week, I'd worked the entire week, and this was probably about 6 weeks in, maybe 7 weeks in.
Okay.
And you're talking like June, hot, it's hot outside, sweat rolling down bullets. The chest, legs complete like jello. If you sold door to door, you guys know what I mean. Yeah. Legs like jello, your feet, like even I used to wear the New Balance shoes, to stay coming. Feet were dead. You're just like, oh my God. But it makes it worse, at the beginning if you're not selling anything. And so I made 0 sales that day. I'd worked like 12 hours. In fact, that week, I think I'd made 0 sales that entire week. It was like horrible. And I was like, maybe the selling thing like wasn't for me. Maybe I just wasn't born a salesperson, because that's what I thought you were. Either you had it or you didn't have it. Right. I didn't have any training. Just like a script, here's some books, rah, work harder. Yeah. Sales is a numbers game. Yeah. And so I'm like, wow, and so that kind of got me into out of necessity. I was like, I've got to figure this out. Like what I'm doing here that they're showing me doesn't really work. And I remember kind of a life-changing moment happened. There was other things that happened, but I got into the van that night, and the Xane put in like a Tony Robbins CD. You might not know, but like 20 some years ago, they had these little round things called CDs. It's like a miracle.
What's that?
Yeah, I know. You're like, what, CD? And Tony said, could be butchering it, but he said something to the point that, you will fail if you don't like learn the right skills necessary. See, like you're going to fail if you don't learn the right skills. The cool thing about it is not only did he expanded on it, and he said that, everybody's taught skills. Like I was taught skills, like here's the script, here's the books. But he said what a lot of people don't realize is that there's different levels of skill level. There's different levels to the ball game. Right. There's some skills that are going to be far more advanced and more effective than the basic skills. And so like as a 21-year-old kid, I don't know what it was. It was like a light bulb moment. It was like the sales gods were looking divine intervention, that maybe what I was learning from the sales gurus at the time, or, my company, maybe they just weren't the right skills. Maybe they're outdated. They just didn't work as well anymore. So that kind of put me on the path of like, I've got to figure this out. I'm in school at the same time studying behavioral science, the brain. And that's when I started learning from my professors that, really the most persuasive way to communicate, I would say, would be over here. And the sales trainers in their books and programs that they were putting us through, it was almost like they were exact opposite way of thinking. Yep. And I'm like, I was so confused as a kid, but I'm like, this way is not really working that well. I'm working my butt off, hardly making any money. Like I want to figure out this other way. And so what I did is I because you don't go to behavioral science like, hey, here's the right questions to ask at the right time. Here's exactly what tone to use in each part of your sales conversation, and exactly how to position your hands and your body movement. And you say certain things in your facial expressions. Like that doesn't exist. It's more like it's like theory. Yeah. So I'm like, how do I take what I'm learning from this and wrap it into a sales process, like with the right questions, the right time? What is it? 93% of the sales made with your
nonverbal, paraverbal.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Mm-hmm. It's not the words you use, but it's like how you use it, how you say it, your tone and body language. But how many sales trainers have taught you all that? Yeah, very few. Besides just saying it. Yeah. Yeah. Like how do you learn
exactly? They tell you it's important, but they don't tell you like, okay, now here's how you do
because they just copy and paste it from another book they read 5 years ago. Yeah. So it's just like a regurgitated thing, right? But nobody really understands it. And so I wanted to understand it. So what I did after, was it my second year? I would actually hire acting instructors that would like I had one from Tom Cruise. It was a lot of money. Yeah. It was like 10 grand or something for like a whole day. And I remember spending like weekends. I'd fly into like California on the weekends during the off season. And I wanted to learn tonality. And cause I would watch their movies and I'm like, oh my gosh,
You're
like
so good at
it's so good because you know, like who's your favorite actor, actress?
Oh, I love Tom Cruise.
Yeah. Okay. So Tom Cruise, great at Mission Impossible. So everything he says in that movie is what? Pretty much 100% what? Scripted.
Yeah, it is.
For the most part.
Yeah.
But does it sound scripted?
And not even.
No,
not
you
can't.
Slightest. You literally don't even view him as Tom Cruise in the movie. You view him as the character.
Yeah, he's so good.
That he portrays. Yep. Any famous actor, actually, that's why they get paid millions of dollars, because you don't view them as your celebrity in the film. You view them as the character.
Yeah.
Now, how did they do that? So these acting instructors, one of the first things they train you is how to use your facial expressions to communicate and change your tonality to elicit different emotional drivers in your audience's brains.
Because they do more listening with their eyes than they do with their ears.
Keep them engaged.
Yeah.
That's why these some of these actors and actresses, the ones that are really great, that have really studied body language, facial expressions, tone. Because here's what I always say: your facial expression is the tone. Is the remote control to how your tone comes across.
I love it.
Like if you want to have a concerned tone, you can't really sit here with a straight face and have a concerned tone. Can you? Try it. Yeah. Let's say if you want to have a challenging tone, can you sit here and not move your face and have a challenging tone? Try it. You can't.
No, it's impossible.
What happens if you don't do anything about this? See, I have to move my facial expression, and that changes my tonality. So that's where I learned like advanced tonality. It wasn't from any sales trainer because there really was none, right? A few people will talk about it. And so then I would take courses on body language from like body language experts. They weren't sales trainers, but they would train like Fortune 100 CEOs or like politicians, EU prime ministers. There's a good group to follow is called the Behavioral Panel on YouTube. I don't know if you've heard of Chase Hughes and some of those guys. No. They'll teach you more about body language and interrogation and how to get people to open up where they want to. And
like Chris Voss kind of stuff.
Yeah, Chris Voss, that's a good example. He's got a great book, and it's completely opposite of what you would hear in a sales training book.
It is. Yeah.
Right. Because it's, like Chris would say, like it's actually in a lot of instances, you want the prospect to say no, not yes. Whereas traditional sales training, like if you get them to say yes 7 times, you have a 71.3% more chance of making the sale. It actually comes from a sales training company back in the 1940s that did their internal polling that came up with that. And then every sales trainer puts in their book, just, the facts behind that. But like there's some instances where I want them to say no because the no leads to a yes.
Yep.
And it's counterintuitive.
I can testify that from personal experience.
Yeah.
That is, I focus on the nose and I hit them straight out the gate. Here's why you wouldn't want to do this. And it shows a massive level of confidence too.
Are you opposed to having a conversation around that? No, I'm not opposed. What do you have?
And dude, the other thing too
is, are you open?
The modern day prospect is so like accustomed to, they have their guard up against the salesman. The typical salesperson is, hey, he said yes. And people catch on. They catch on.
They know what, because your tone. So your tone is how the prospect, they don't know, but this is how the brain works. Okay. This is their survival part of the brain known as a lot of people would call it the reptilian part of the brain. There's 3 areas of your brain. You got the survival part, which is known as more the reptilian brain. Yeah. Some people call it the croc brain, whatever. You've got more, I won't give you the scientific term, but it's more known as the midbrain. Okay. And then you've got your neocortex here, which is your problem solving part of the brain. And so like, I'll give you an example. So your tone is how your prospect interprets the intention behind the questions you ask. That's how they interpret the intention. So when you said I was really good at sales because I knew how to show empathy,
they could see the intention was genuine.
Interpreting that. They didn't know what they were doing, but their brain was interpreting that as I can trust him. What he's telling me is true. Bingo. And trust is where the sale is made.
Absolutely.
100%. Like people buy, I always say this, people buy from people or companies who they trust can get them the best result. They don't just buy because they like you.
Yeah.
It's a big difference. And a lot of people get that from, I think it's what the Dale Carnegie book, 1936. Like people buy from people they like. Yep. Well, I would say that was definitely a lot more truer in 1936, but society is completely different at this point. Like, back in 1936, they didn't have social media. They didn't have rankings where you could just look up a company's complaints. Like you could look up on social media and know exactly everything about how long they've been in business, what their price points were, who their competitors were. You literally can do anything by a smartphone now. And they didn't have, like you would buy from the local hardware store or your brother in 1936. But let's say if I'm in a network marketing company and I get approached by grandma who's in the same network marketing company, but then I get approached by the #1 income earner who wants to recruit me. Who am I going to join? Grandma. I love grandma. I like grandma, and I don't like that dude necessarily. I don't even know him, but I trust he can get me a better result. So I'm going with him.
Yep.
It's the same thing.
Spot on.
You might not necessarily like Jeff Bezos or Amazon, but you're buying from Amazon way more than your local hardware store, and you got your buddy down there.
Yep.
You like your buddy, but you trust that Amazon can get you a better result. I mean, I could go on and on and on about everything.
That's so fascinating. And there's something I want to geek out with you is the modern day buyer and how it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
So I love the story. And then to summarize the rest of the story, you went from door to door. You're in there for how many years?
Yeah. So I want
the audience to know you have experience in various industries where a lot of sales trainers are just like only car sales.
Yeah.
So just
I did that on purpose because I knew this is going to sound really weird, but I knew early on, like even after probably my second year when I just elevated, I knew very early on when I elevated after that second year that eventually, because everybody was like, you gotta be sales trained. Like you, not only can you sell, but you understand what's happening in the process. Because it's one thing to actually be able to sell a ton. It's another thing to be able to teach people why and what you're doing, where they conceptualize it and then they can retain it and then go out and know how to do it.
Yeah.
Those are two different skills. Okay.
Completely.
Two different skills. But you have to have the credibility to be, in my mind, like it's hard for me to respect sales trainers that weren't like at the very top.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because I would start reading books and like even in the early days, and I would look and I would look up facts on them. And like, well, this guy wasn't even at the top. Good salesperson, but he wasn't even at the top. Like, how am I going to get to the top from somebody teaching me sales that wasn't at the very top? So
this is something I want to ask you of the old timers. Yeah. You got Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, Dale Carnegie. Who's your favorite?
Man, I'm going to say I'm a Brian Tracy fan for sure because I know Brian.
Yeah.
My first event I went to was actually here in Salt Lake City. Right after that first summer, they had us go to this convention with Brian Tracy, and there's probably 300-400 of us in there. And the one thing that really stuck with me that he said is he said, use your vehicle as a university on wheels.
Yes.
And so literally, literally from that day, like I literally got into my car. I'm like, I'm not listening to the radio. I used to listen to Sports Center all the time or whatever it was called back in the day. And I was a big sports fan. And I just started listening to back in the day, it was like CDs. So I bought all of his CDs and stuff like that. And from that day forward, I literally have either read or listened to 5 books a month on sales, persuasion, or influence times 12 months a year times 23 years. It's like almost 1,400 some books. Yeah. Now, people ask me, how do you have time to read 5? Well, I don't read 5.
You're listening in the car.
I listen to about 3 in the car. I'm just driving.
The average sales rep spends how many hours in the car each day? Like 3 to 4.
Yeah. And what do they listen to? Taylor Swift?
Or pump up music.
How much is Taylor Swift making you, dude? Like how much is your AC/DC songs? Don't get me wrong. I love mindset stuff.
Yeah.
And I think you have to have that.
Yes.
But when the prospect, door to door, let's say, or on the phone or in person, doesn't matter. When they say hello, if you don't know what to say and ask, that can immediately trigger them to let their guard down and want to emotionally open up, you're going to have a hard go. And all that, journaling and, cold showers and cold plunges, even though I love them, I love personal development for your personal life, it all goes out the window. And reps, it's really hard for them to stay motivated when you're just not making that many sales.
Yeah, you're getting rejected so much. I think there's a balance.
Motivated? Yeah, there has to be a balance.
Because on the flip side, and this doesn't discredit anything you're saying, but I've seen guys that are phenomenal, that like the talent's a 10 out of 10, and they can make $1 million a year, and they make less than 100K. And it's because they lack discipline. Yeah, they lack discipline.
They're not committed.
So they don't have that aspect of the personal development.
You have to have both. Yeah, you have to be committed.
Absolutely.
Discipline, but you have to have the skills. And I see so many people focus on mindset, and I'm like, that's really good. You have to have that. But man, like to me, the way I always describe sales from very early on, because the way I was taught, the same thing where you is like, oh, it's a numbers game. Yeah. Not, when you start in the door-to-door industry, even, my next industry I got into was B2B sales. I got into like debt relief services, mainly quite a few enterprise, like Fortune 1000 and SMB, some Fortune 500, whole different ballgame. Yeah. But they still said the same thing. Selling's a number game. Keep cold calling. Just, like, come on, man. Same thing. It's all the same thing. And I'm like, I always questioned everything. I'm just weird. I'm like, why is it a numbers game? Why does it have to be a numbers game? I'd always be like, why does it have to be a numbers game? Because I learned in door to door, I'm like, in the beginning, it was a numbers game because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But as I got better and better and better, it just became less of a numbers game and more of a skills game, where I was more focused on the words I was saying. I was more focused on the questions that I was asking. I was more focused on my tonality. And if somebody didn't buy, I'd leave and I'd be like, okay, what did I not ask? What did I not say? Like, I think I responded to that objection a little bit too like needy, you know, and I would make little tweaks here and there. And instead of going out and have to knock on 100 doors, you know, talk to 100 people to make one sale, you know, you could literally go knock on 5 doors and you could like quite literally sell 4 out of 5.
Exactly. Yeah. Literally.
You know, and it's like, everybody's like, he doesn't even hardly work and he's freaking making 4 times as many sales as I'm. Well, yeah, because I'm focused on selling as a skills game, not a numbers game.
Bingo. Well, dude, here's the beauty. There's an analogy I love with this. Dice. There's such thing as a 20-sided dice. I don't know for what board game, I bought one to teach these people.
Wow, okay.
There's a 20-sided dice, okay? Now, let's say a numbers game says, hey, we roll that dice 20 times, we get 1 sale, right? If we hit 1 or whatever the number is. But what happens if we remove a lot of those sides, get down to a 6-sided dice? We get a sale every time it hits 1. Probability goes up, but we can still roll the dice the same amount of times. So it's a game of both, right? And then I've seen we've both seen this with the sales industry, especially outbound cold calling, door knocking, where you could have a 6-sided dice kind of guy that sells everybody, but then he rolls his freaking dice 4 times. He says, dude, nobody's giving me like this. This is a sucky day, you know, doesn't have the work ethic. I think it's
true. You know, I always describe it as like, are you like an NBA fan?
Yeah, a little bit. Not hardcore.
I'm not hardcore either, but like, you know, Steph Curry.
Oh, yeah.
Classic example.
Look at that. We got the jersey right here, baby. Signed jersey.
Subliminally, you were sending messages when I came into your office. So, Steph Curry, you know, 3-point champ. I want you to imagine if Steph Curry said, oh, yeah, basketball is a numbers game. It's a numbers game. Just shoot as many threes as you can. Don't worry. If Steph had that mindset, in high school, he would have never never played college ball at Davidson. He would have never went to the pros. No, Steph views basketball as a skills game. And that's why every day, even though he's a legend already, he's out there working on his technique, tweaking his wrist movement, tweaking the way his elbow comes, you know, different techniques, use his hips to get open. He's focused on the skills game because he knows for him to make, you know, $50 million a year in basketball, that the more 3-point shots he hits and the more points he makes with the less attempts, he makes more money because he knows it's a skills game. So, I mean, you could do it with anything, athletes, business owners. But, you know, I always say that to, when I'm doing a workshop, it's like, imagine if a business owner focused on his salespeople, training them like, hey, this is a skills game. We're going to give you the right skills. And as you go, it's going to be more of a numbers game in the beginning while you're developing the skills. But I want you to focus on your skills, not just go through the numbers and the motions like a talking telemarketing robot. And so many companies, when you start preaching all the time that selling is a numbers game and that's what you're focused on, you were quite literally putting that in their head. It's just a numbers, you know, most are going to say no, the one's going to say yes. So that your salespeople don't try to develop far better skill level to make it less and less of a numbers game.
It's fascinating, Jeremy. I absolutely love that. You know, and this is kind of a theme that you and I both really align with is its perspective on the modern day closer. And the problem with pushing that agenda of like becoming a master closer, becoming a hard closer, you know, is it's by its nature, it's manipulative. And when you say just talk to more people, push more, you are trying to win your way, which is manipulation.
Yeah, because you know, it's interesting. So, have you ever heard of Max Major? He's a world-renowned hypnotist. I'm really good friends with him. We brought him into our corporate event a while back, and ever since we're like we're all geeking out on like
hypnotism,
cold mind reading, and just crazy stuff that he does, and that it's a whole nother story. But anyways, but like, you know, Max will tell you, he's like, you got to be careful with the words you say to yourself and you say out loud, because you actually hypnotize your brain to think different ways. So when you're constantly, one word that I just hate when people say, it's like my pet peeve. Is when people are like, hey, how do I get better at pitching, Jeremy? How do I get better at my pitch?
Thank you.
And I'm just like, dude, you've got the rock. You're not understanding what selling is. Like, if your mindset is like, I'm pitching. How does society view pitching at large? In society, how do they view pitching? Just society. How does society view pitching?
it's
or
selfish.
I'm a closer.
It's selfish. It's like politics.
Manipulative, taking advantage of someone else. So they view it at a lower status. How do they view salespeople in general? At a lower status. Even if you make $500,000 a year, they still will view you at a lower status than somebody who makes 50 grand.
This is why the sales industry has such a stigma. And this is part of what I'm set on my career to help improve this, Jeremy, is this stigma around salespeople. And I know you're passionate about this too. Otherwise you wouldn't be training on this stuff.
Yeah. Our whole mission as a corporation, it's right when you walk into our corporate quarters in Scottsdale, is to change the way sales is perceived in society.
Oh, dude, I love it.
I might not be around. It might take, more than 50 or 60 years by the time it happens, but it will happen if enough of us actually teach people the right techniques, because selling is, I always view like average salespeople as they view selling as adversarial.
Yes.
Like you said, it's you against the prospect trying to win them over so you make money. You're going to play a lot of numbers game because it comes out in the way you communicate. It just does. Selling, like if you want to be a top 1% earner, like, you were in the industry and everything, you make all this money, you have to view selling as collaborative. Yeah. Like they have problems that my solution can solve.
Yes.
Now, if they don't buy, I'm not going to you can't get to the end of a presentation and be like, let me know if you're interested. Email me back. Like that's not what we're saying here. No. The way I always view it is like, who has the problems, the prospect or me? The prospect has problems. It's not
your problem. Yeah.
It's not my problem. I don't have this problem.
Dude.
Like if you're in solar, right? Because solar is like the 6th or 7th largest industry trade now. Like I'm not the one that's being forced to pay rate hikes.
Right.
You are.
So Jeremy, let me add on to this. So I've done very well in solar, making over $200,000 a month in solar.
Yeah.
And I can testify to this. I go into a deal thinking if I walk out this door and they don't buy, it's not my loss. It is 100% their loss. And I don't feel that as like, oh, you suck. It's like a genuine sorrow.
You're concerned for their situation. They're going to have to keep paying the rate hikes.
Yeah.
So it's almost like even if they don't buy, because you're going to close most of them, but just the few that just don't.
Right.
They would always leave the conversation, and I knew that they knew I felt concerned for their situation and that nothing was going to change. So you don't know how many times people would call me back. Or clients call me back a month later to me. It's like, man, I've really been pondering what you were asking me and saying. It's like, we got to do something. We got to change. Like, how do I pay? Like, quite literally all the time. I never left a conversation if they didn't buy, like where it was like buy or die, like where they like viewed me as the enemy, because I've just severed that relationship. They're never going to buy. Like they're not going to call me back, or if I call them in 3 months to get back with them, they're not going to buy. Yeah. But if I built that level of trust and I built that gap from where they are to where they want to be, and if for some reason they couldn't get the funds or funding together, or just something happened, I always knew that I left that conversation with them in their mind, knowing that they knew I felt concerned that their problems were going to stay the same and nothing was going to change. So because so many calls and referrals, and it was just like, it was just easy. It was like just it was like sales were just like layups or just like laydowns.
Dude, you know what's fascinating is I think breaking down, I didn't know this before you came in today, that you served a mission.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And so I want to talk about this a little bit. This might be controversial.
It's a good foundation.
It's a phenomenal foundation because Jeremy, we didn't make money beyond a mission.
Yeah.
Right. We're both not active right now. Shame on us.
I need to go back to church. Yeah.
But no, we learned how to influence because at the core of influence is you want to win-win. Yeah. Right. And that's the most, it's called, I call it integrous influence.
I felt concern for people.
We genuinely felt sorrow, and we actually paid to be out there. Whereas the opposite, we weren't making money. We were paid.
We paid to go on a mission.
And so we got this in, this lesson of helping people no matter what. Right. And 100%. When you can think from that perspective and you're not thinking about the money, dude, can you make a lot of money or what?
You'll make a lot of money because people will start to trust you more. Like they'll view you as like an expert, I always call it the trusted authority rather than just another salesperson trying to stuff their solution down my throat. Yep. That's where you get commoditized. That's when they start looking around like, salespeople that come into our programs, we have different levels, and there's one level called Advanced Inner Circle, which we only let 50 people a month into. It's like there's a waiting list usually of 2 to 3 months to even get in. Okay. The highest level training program for an individual, not a company. Companies, we have different things that we do with those. And I'll have some people that they view selling, they come in and they're already doing pretty well, but like they just capped and they'll make 20, 25 grand a month in their industry, but they're just working tons of hours. They're burned out. They feel like they're in a boxing match every day. That's how they describe it. Like, I'm going into a boxing match. I'm going to win some of the fights. I get sucker punched some other times. And then I wake up and just try to, convince myself to do it again. I'm like, man, selling doesn't have to be that way.
No,
it
like, doesn't.
Like literally, like, they have problems. Your solution can solve those. So if your prospects have problems and or emotional needs, right? Like if I'm selling Ferraris, it doesn't necessarily solve a problem, right?
It's a status thing.
Yeah, it's more like it solves an emotional need. If I'm selling like a $30,000 type of purse, I'm not necessarily solving a problem. You can buy a purse to pack your belongings in at Walmart or Target, but it's solving an emotional need because maybe she wants higher status. Maybe, maybe she was married to some guy at the beginning and he always put her down, and now she's successful. She has her own company. She wants to show him wrong or show, her classmates that she's arrived. Or maybe you were a kid who got picked on at school and now you want to show your friends that, dude, like, take that. It's a status thing, right?
It is.
Raise your status with those type of things. So you have to understand, they have the problems and or emotional needs. Your solution solves those. So if they have the problems and your solution solves those, why are they not buying from you? Like, what's the missing link?
Exactly.
The missing link is you. Man. Like, your skill level is the missing link. It's the questions you haven't learned how to ask yet.
Oh, there you go.
It's the tone that
We're
you
gonna
don't
dive into that
understand. It's the you haven't learned how to raise your status in the prospect's mind rather than saying things that lower your status. I mean, there's so much nuances that you have to acquire if you want to be viewed that way.
How do you, prospect. I love this, Jeremy. How do you feel about walking away from some deals where, like, let's say, hey, it could be a fit, but you're leaning towards it not being a fit for the customer. You're like, hey, you might not be the best bet. Do you advise that people walk away?
I think it depends on the industry you're in. Like the largest, we train 161 industries. The largest industry we train now is life insurance, which is like final expense, mortgage protection, health insurance. Like,
so that one for most people, for that one, for that one,
protecting their family.
Agreed. But for solar, like, for example, if you might be screening them, or, in a little bit, like in a solar situation, if their taxable income's not too high, I feel good walking away from those. But
what if it locks in the rate? Where they
there you go.
Protected
So, and sometimes I will sell myself on it. And so if I'm not genuinely sold, I do not sell a deal. I think this is where people get stuck is their level of conviction. They sell past that level of conviction. And that's when you're compromising your integrity. And that's when you don't sell people. That's when you start selling your soul. And you start selling your soul long enough, it's going to catch up. And I can say this from experience.
You wear out.
And
you want to get into management.
Yeah, exactly. So, dude, this is the pest control industry. Love you guys, but I'm sorry calling it out. The pest control industry is this way. If you go into any company in a sales organization and they're actively, like, you can tell the whole model is to graduate the sales and go into management and recruiting, there's red flags.
Right. Because they're not being like, see, I think that's the biggest myth is that a lot of people, believe that if you like make all this money in sales, somehow you're dishonest.
Yes,
but I would say the exact is true. The exact thing is true. Like, I think the more dishonest you are, I think prospects pick up on that stuff. I really do.
Now, you can't get away with it. You can't get away. But because you're selling your soul, you'll eventually tap out.
You'll burn out.
You'll burn out.
Yeah, you'll burn out. And I think, it depends on what type of person you're talking to.
And then you'll switch industries.
You're talking to like pretty sophisticated individuals.
Yeah.
So they know if you're telling the truth or not, because it's going to be in the contractual agreement, right? Like, it's not like you're selling pest control, like sign here, and it's thrown in, like they come around, spray around, and they find out, 6 months later, like, oh, I didn't know about this. It's a different ballgame, So I find that the more like, and like somebody, let's say if you sell something, I'll give you an example. And, within like 30 seconds, they're like, well, hey, can you just tell me how much it's going to cost? And I tell you if I'm interested.
Yeah.
We got one of three choices. You can just tell them what it's going to cost, which, as you know, 99% of the time, like it's just over. Right. So if you're like honest, right? Oh, it costs this. It's done. Oh, not interested. Can't afford it. You can try to skirt it underneath the rug and like ignore it. Oh yeah. I mean, we'll go through that for sure, but I need to ask some questions first. Yeah. And then, that's just going to trigger more resistance because then they're going to feel like, dude, you're holding something.
Salesy.
You're salesy, or you can answer it indirectly. Right. Bingo. So depending on the industry, I'm going to answer that industry. So let's say let's say the insurance game.
Oh, insurance. Go ahead.
A little bit different angle, but let's say you're saying life insurance and you call, because that's a common thing you get, because a lot of the leads are age. They've been called by 30 different agents. They don't know who the hell you are from Adam or Eve. And you call, and a lot of people are like, well, hey, and a lot of it is triggered by tone being off sounds salesy. It triggers resistance, but that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, hey, how much is this going to cost? Like, how much is it going to cost to have interested? Oh, so you first agree, like, oh yeah, for sure. Like, we'll go through all that. So first thing you have to agree.
Yeah.
Why do I want to agree? Because I want them to like let their guard down.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah, for sure. We'll go all through those details. It really depends on like your age, like your health conditions, like your medical, and like kind of what your expenses are, your household expenses. And once I understand all those different details, I can go through all the different options we have for clients. Would that help you better if I did that for you?
I love that, Jeremy.
Yeah, good. Yeah, because now it makes sense why you're asking the questions.
Oh, but it's what I love about it is it's also transparent because I'm like, hey, dude, I've got nothing to hide. Here's what it is.
Yeah.
And then I go, they're like, well, that's, and then all the what's the potential red flags or what's he trying to hide from me? I bring it all out. It's like, well, that doesn't sound super sexy. I'm going to pay more.
Whoa. We're getting a bit ahead of ourselves. Some homes that, there's nothing we can do for them anyways. I should probably ask you, like once they start getting excited, it's almost like you push them away a little bit to get them to pull you back in.
Exactly.
That's a push-pull technique.
Yeah.
One good thing that you want to talk to your viewers about is a concept called mismatching, right? So even like Chris Voss would talk about in his book, because a lot of salespeople, like every industry I sold in, every industry's out there, is like when they hear something good from the prospect, they try to upplay it. So like if, let's say in solar, that you're going to save them all this money.
Right.
Most salespeople are like, oh, we're going to be able to save you all this money and like blah, 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 blah. But a lot of times the prospect will be like, well, I mean, it's not going to be that much.
Yes.
See, they mismatch. But if I'm like, it's not going to be that much. I mean, you might save 10, 11, 12,000 over the 10 or 11 years. I mean, that's not even that much money. What would you do with it though if you had it?
Yeah.
So, well, are you kidding me? That's a penny saved is a penny earned.
Yes.
Like they're going to say the exact opposite. Or let's say if they told me in the conversation some emotional thing from a problem, like, oh gosh, I'm so stressed out because of X, Y, Z or whatever.
Yeah.
So at the end, a lot of sales will be like, I think you'd mentioned you're feeling a lot of stress right now.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of A-types are like, well, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
And now they mismatch. But if I'm like, I think you'd mentioned it's caused you to feel maybe a little bit of stress sometimes. You have no idea the stress it's causing me. Complete 180, right?
Yeah.
See, I'm triggering that emotion by downplaying it as a salesperson, causes them to make it more important in their mind.
It's amazing.
Now, you can't go too far. You don't want to be negative. Like, you're not going to make any money at all. In fact, you shouldn't do it. Like that's like not obviously what we're talking about here. But it's more like you're more neutral.
Yep.
I mean, it's not going to be that like with alarms, because they get I don't know what they get now, but they used to get a discount for their homeowners. Yeah. A lot of people are going to save you so much money. It's going to save you like 20% a month. I mean, it's not that much. We're only paying $60 a month. Like it's only going to be $8. Hey, it's not going to be that much. You're only going to save like 22% a month. Are you kidding me? Like any savings is good here. You'll get the exact opposite reaction because I'm downplaying it.
Exactly.
And they upplay it.
Dude, it's amazing how the brain works with reverse psychology. When the moment I train my guys on this, the moment you tell them positive and you stack too many benefits,
it sounds
too good to be true. And it triggers that. And I've noticed I have an intrinsic filter or like gauge in my mind of when that's hitting.
Like you've gotten to like, I'm getting near to the, like I'm going overboard with the
and so guess what I bring out if we're getting there?
What?
I slam them with a negative.
Yeah.
I say, hey, look, I don't want to get hopes up. It's either hard to have or hey,
get your hopes
I want to, that's one of my favorite lines.
What you just did there is you switched the frame. So in social dynamics, have you ever read Warren Claff's book called Pitch Anything? It's a really good book. He's mainly like on capital raising and stuff. But like he's really one of the only sales trainers I've ever read of, or like, because I went through a lot of programs too, that really understand social dynamics. I don't know if he went to school for it or if he just researched it, but social dynamics is how society. It's a concept called rank framing. He calls it status framing, but it's really called rank framing. But like in every day and age, people view your status for different reasons. Like if I lived, let's say in the Polynesian Islands 1,000 years ago, how would people view my status? They would base my status and my rank based on the tattoos I had on my arms and legs.
Right.
The different types of tattoos would tell them what status I have in the society. If I'm medieval times, like a king and queen or a lord or a duke, you would view them at a higher status, right? Because of, their titles. In our day and age, you're pretty much viewed by a couple of different things. You could be viewed by the amount of followers you have on social media, even if you're broke. You could be viewed as, you know, the amount of assets you have or money as a higher status. Or if you're a celebrity, you're viewed at a higher status.
Right.
So it's quite interesting. Like as a salesperson, when you come into that sales conversation, when you train a lot of this, is that you have to understand, as society at large, you're already viewed at a lower status than your prospect when you talk to them. So you have to keep that in mind. So when you come into that conversation, you want to use words and use your tone that does not sound like all the other salespeople that they've ever talked to, because you'll immediately trigger what's called fight or flight in their survival part of their brain. And that's when you get like, oh, so they're not interested. Or, no, we're good. Oh, we already have something for that.
It's a trust issue.
It's a trust issue because you're triggering that by sounding like everybody else. Like if you knock on a door, I first started learning this when I started knocking on the doors and the script would be like, hi, my name is, I'm with XYZ company. The reason why your neighborhood was, you sound like a pest control salesperson, solar, alarms, landscape and everything. So I remember I don't even remember how I like figure this out, but I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but it was a classic example of a pattern interrupt.
Yes.
So have you ever heard me talk about like being a confused old man? A lot of people don't understand what I mean by that. When I do like, you can't be confused. You got to sound like the expert. I agree. You don't want to sound like
every guy is trying to do.
We don't want to sound like the confused old man when you're going through what your product does or anything.
Right.
But in a cold calling situation, right? When I'm knocking on the door,
it's money,
my confusion actually triggers curiosity in that other person's brain. So I would knock on the door. And what I did is a pattern interrupt back in the day. And I think it's still probably the same. But when I first started in door to door, this is like 2000, 2001, people didn't wear like khaki shorts and like the polos and stuff. Like you would dress up. Like that's how it started. Wow. And then that next summer, they're like, oh, let's wear shorts. Like people just started wearing shorts.
And guess how it is now?
What is it now? I don't know.
Now you see some of my videos, I go out in sweats or a t-shirt.
Yeah. So
I try to look less and less like a salesperson.
Yes.
That's the secret.
So that was my thing. I was like, how do I look not like a slick car salesperson? I know we train a lot of car dealerships, but so I would wear the khaki shorts, just regular polo. I try to hide even the thing that said security, like with a badge or something with it, because you still had to wear it. And I'd put my name tag. I wouldn't even wear it. I just put it in my pocket, like literally, because you looked like a salesperson with the name tag and everything. And so I got a clipboard, like a metal clipboard, like I was a meter reader. And I put like a survey on it with like 5 questions that I was filling out. I went and got a construction vest. I had a lime green one and I had a orange one. And I would like rotate. I'm like, oh, this week I got 23 installs. I got to stick with the orange, man. It's like, or whatever it was, the white old man, New Balance shoes. I had like a $10 Walmart watch. I wanted to look as basic and unsalesperson as anything. And so when they knock on the door, I'd be like 6 feet back, like you're taught to the side, angle to the side. And I wouldn't be like, like with a smile on my face like that, but I'd be looking around, with the alarms, you would like put the sign in the yard to get the free system and all that stuff. So I'd be looking at their yard and bushes and stuff, kind of like that. Or if I sold solar, I'd probably be looking at the roof. If I sold alarms, I couldn't be even looking at windows or whatever, or pest control, I'd probably be looking at the ground or cobwebs, but I'm looking. And as they come to the door, I have my pen. That's where I started carrying the pen with my clipboard. Yeah, that's when it all began for Jeremy. They'd come to the door and they'd be like, I'd be like, as I could see them from my side, because I never went like this, but I could see them come to the side. So that would trigger because I didn't go like this. I very rarely had somebody that would stand behind their doors, almost unheard of, even in really bad neighborhoods. And so they'd come to the door and I'd be like, yeah, are you guys the property owners here? Like with that confused tone. Like, yeah, we're the property owners. What's going on? And immediately, you're already just right there, I've already triggered engagement and curiosity. Whereas the salesperson, hi, my name is, I'm with, they're not even listening to what you're saying. You got resistance. They've already tuned you out because of how your tonality is coming across. And they have not even, you could be like, hey dude, you just won $1 billion. I'm here to give you the check. And they say, not interested. No. They literally, they're not even hearing the word you're saying. It's quite fascinating.
It is so fascinating, man. The thing I always find myself doing is, and even when I didn't understand what I was doing, was I found myself trying to just be different than what every other guy was doing. Because I realized, okay, people have a resistance to what they're seeing happen all the time. And so I think the best technique is for sales will continue to change over decades.
For sure.
Because as a group of people, like let's say everybody starts embracing this methodology that we have of like acting confused. If everybody's doing that, people are going to start getting triggered.
They'll pick up a little bit more. How you're using a confused tone to get them engaged. Because your brain automatically reacts to that. You don't really control that. It's a weird phenomenon. Yeah, exactly.
I like that.
Because they don't really understand what you're doing. So if I'm like, here, where else would I use a confused tone? So let's say a prospect tells me a problem. Okay. Now, as a salesperson, I want them to expand on that problem. I don't want to just I don't want them to say a surface level problem.
Why is that, Jeremy? Why?
Well, if you don't get them to expand, they don't feel any pain. And what's the number one emotional driver in a human being that causes them to want to change?
Pain.
It's pain or the fear of future pain.
Yep. FOMO.
So if you can't help them relive pain, they don't feel any need to change. And if they don't feel any need to change, that's why you get all the objections, and that's why you lose sales.
Yep.
So if I can get them to relive their pain and expand on that pain, what I do is you probably hear me talk about this in some reels. We talk about building a gap from where they are, current state, to where they want to be. We call that their objective state. What's the gap? The gap is determined by you, the salesperson, not the prospect, not unless they're laid out. There's few and far between. So the gap can only be determined by the questions you ask and how you ask them, the tone that gets the prospect to emotionally open up.
Bingo.
Because they trust you.
Yep.
You can have the very best questions in the world.
Yeah.
But if you sound scripted, your prospects aren't just going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to open up to him emotionally because I know what he's trying to do to me. They're not willing to do that.
Exactly.
So it has to sound like a natural conversation, even though it's a very skilled conversation. That triggers their brain to like trust you more, to let their guard down and emotionally open up. They don't even know what's going on. Right. It's just the way the brain responds to it.
I love that, Jeremy. Dude, I always say, stop being a product pitcher. To use the word pitch, okay?
Yeah. We call it a product pusher.
Yeah. Don't be a product pitcher, problem pitch, but be a problem pitcher. Pitch problem, because the more they incorporate the problem, and it's not just about pitching, right? It's about getting them to talk about it. Tell me more.
Yeah.
It shows interest, right? When you get people to talk about themselves, you use psychology there.
Yeah.
But then also when they talk about it, they're manifesting it and they're believing it and it's real. Exactly. They're selling themselves.
Yeah. So let's say that, let's go back to your industry, like solar.
Yeah.
So let's say the prospect says like, tell me like a problem that they would say, or like an emotion or something that they would be frustrated with.
Like our last bill was a super high. Like say it's $300.
$300? How do you mean?
Like, I don't know. We're just using a lot of power. And
what caused it to be so high?
I don't know. They're just gouging us.
What are they forcing you to pay?
We got to pay all that. We're just doing our thing,
Yeah. So see, confused tone, right? Hold on. How do you mean it's so high?
Yeah.
See, confused tone that triggers you to your brain is basically saying he didn't understand fully what I said. I need to clarify that better.
Yeah.
That's what your brain goes to. So my confused tone. Well, hold on. I'm not understanding. How do you mean X, Y, Z?
Yeah.
Oh, well, what I mean by, and see, the brain says in their mind, he didn't understand fully what I said. I need to explain that better, which causes them to open up more.
I love
That's how your confused tone triggers that reaction.
That's amazing, Jeremy. So this is huge for me.
Okay.
There's, you can tell my passion about the stigma about salespeople.
Yeah.
Being pushy, manipulative, aggressive. Okay. We see top sales trainers actually educating this on being a master closer, pushing, closing more. The average prospect gets, you get the sale after the 5th attempt to close. That's old school, even selling, right?
Yeah.
How do you feel? Why do you feel like there's such a strong stigma about sales?
I think my answer might be a little bit different than what you might have expected. I would say, I think it's just the old saying is you don't know what you don't know. Like I always say, what's the biggest problem in sales? Well, the big problem in sales is the problem that you don't know you have. Like if you don't understand how the brain works, if you don't understand human behavior, like if you don't have any background in that, it would be hard to really understand that, because that is how you're taught to sell. And when you look at your leaders as like, they have higher status than me, what they say is true. Yeah. Most people don't ever question that. I'm like I just question everything. I'm like, well, why do I have to do like that? Dude, I don't understand. Like I feel uncomfortable.
Superpower.
Like I feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I like, here's the thing I always say, like, do you want salespeople to be like high pressure on you?
No,
exactly. Anybody that says they do is full of BS. Yeah. Right? Like nobody does that. Nobody's like, hey, I love the high pressure techniques.
Yeah,
like it works against the way human beings are designed by God, in my opinion. Like nobody likes, like you don't even feel comfortable. Like you can tell. Like, in the beginning, I was taught that, and I could quite literally feel myself when I would go into like high pressure, like, just kind of like hit them on the head and manipulate them to close them. That first couple months was learn how to sell. Yeah. I felt uncomfortable, and I could feel that the prospect felt uncomfortable. Yeah. I could tell by their body language. I could tell by their tone. And I'm like, I don't like feeling that way. I don't want them to feel that way. And once again, they have the problems. My solution can solve it. The missing link is how I'm communicating that is triggering them to run the other way, even though they freaking have problems that I can solve.
Yeah.
So I just, like I said, I don't blame anybody that uses those techniques. We're all taught to use them. It's not your fault you use them, but it is your what? It is your problem. Yeah. Right? As my CEO would say, it's not your fault, but it is your problem. Nobody's going to save you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that, like I've personally been around Jordan Belfort. I picked him up, took him to the Door-to-Door Con event a couple of years ago.
Oh, awesome.
And how do you feel with guys like Jordan Belfort, Grant Cardone, and then Andy? I feel like there's some similarities with those guys when it comes to pushing hard closing. Like it's force your way from my perspective. And I just for the record, I respect these guys a lot.
Yeah, sure.
Especially India. I have a lot of respect for the discipline behind a human being. Yeah. And there's a lot of great character about all these men. And I've studied them. And but with that being said, there is a general theme and a vibe of close more, like we get your way, win, don't be a pussy, you know.
Yeah.
And it seems manipulative.
In my mind,
to me.
you're a pussy the less you sell. So like if I'm going to use techniques that cause me to sell less, that's who's the real pussy. Like, you know, like that, sorry. Like I always like that. Like, look, like, you know, hey, like I made multiple 7 figures a year in commissions. It's either a 1099 rep or a W-2 rep. And I did that in 4 completely different industries, or actually 3 completely different industries, because the door-to-door program is only 4 months in the summer. Yeah. You know, I'd get up to 80, 100 grand a month. We only work 4 months. Yeah. And so like, if somebody ever said like, oh, you know, your techniques, you're just a pussy. I'm like, well, your commission checks show you're the pussy. Like I'm not the pussy. Like I make 5 times more than you. So who's the real pussy? Like, but I always like, I don't understand. Like here's the saying I always say, like, you are who your commission check says you are. Nothing more, nothing less. Like I could close anybody. How much do you make per month? Oh, well, apparently not, because your commission check says who you are. It's like John Madden, the football. Like you are who your record says you are, right? In football, like if you're a 6-10 team, well, you're not that great.
Now, right? how do we counterbalance that with Jordan Belfort? Because his commission checks were very high at the time, right? So where's the balance?
Yeah, and like I said, here's what I always say. Like, I don't know, you know, Jordan or Grant or, as you said, Andy, personally. So I would never judge, you know, and I know you're not judging. Yeah, I just don't know enough about them. Right. We would just come at sales from a different perspective, more like the human psychology perspective, you know, behavioral science, working with the brain, working with human behavior rather than triggering resistance and then having to fight against the resistance with like rebuttals. Yeah. It just seems like a hard way to do it. It's like you're triggering the wall of resistance to come up, and now I have to learn how to break the wall down. I'm like, well, why don't we just learn how to like get them to like let their guard down where the wall never comes up? It seems a lot easier to sell. So that being said, you know, those guys obviously do great things. They've got great companies. Yeah. I just don't know them personally, but to me, like I'm more of like, I think when you sell that way, I just think there's a cap of what you can make as an individual salesperson.
Agreed.
And I think like you can't work, like, look, if let's say you make 150,000 a year and you're using those type of approaches, how are you going to go from 150,000 a year to 500,000 a year selling the same thing by using the same techniques? Yeah. Because you're already playing the numbers game. Yep. Like, are you going to work double the hours? Yeah. I mean, you already work 9 hours a day, probably, or 10. So you're going to work 18 to 20? Right. Probably not realistic. No. So if you want to double or triple your sales and income, you simply, all you have to do is acquire a much higher level of sales above it. Like I always say, there are levels to the ball game of sales. Agreed. You decide what level you want to play on, but your skill level decides what level that's going to be. Your determination, your commitment, your work ethic, and your skill level will decide which level you play at. Hence 7th level. There you go.
7th level, baby.
You know, my minor was psychodynamics, but I also studied a lot of world religions. I'm just, you know, I just love world religions and why do people believe certain things. And I love to see like ancient religions. So I studied a lot of like ancient Christianity before the rise of, you know, I'm going to geek out on this, before like the rise of Roman Catholicism in the 3rd century. And you would find even in ancient Islam and ancient Christianity, I'm not talking about modern stuff, but their beliefs were far different than what those religious beliefs believe now. Now, a lot of the core beliefs are still the same, but a lot of the beliefs are like radically different. And if you looked at early Christianity, like 200 AD compared to right now, you'd be like, oh, that church believes in crazy things, but that's literally what the early church believed in compared to what it did now.
Yeah.
And so, I find with one thing that I found in all the world religions, there was several things, but one thing that really stood out that they all had in common. And they all believed, even ancient Judaism and Hinduism, they all believed, in Christianity, they all believed that there was more levels where God dwelt. They actually believed that God dwelt in the seven. We're going all the way back to Mesopotamian. What's the word? Mesopotamians.
Yeah.
I always pronounce it wrong.
Okay.
But even their religions believed that God dwelt in the seventh level and that there was levels of heaven. And for you to attain those, you had to do certain things. Obviously the atonement of Christ, but it was more about what you did in the world, the people you helped, your kind words, lifting up people, those type of things. It's how you treated other people that ultimately decided which level you're going to play at, like which level you're going to be at. And if you didn't make that seventh level where God dwelt, because he is perfected, right? We're imperfect. He's perfect. That felt like hell to you. It wasn't necessarily like the devil with the pitchfork and the fire. That's the perspective from medieval times. But it was like a hell to you if you were out of his presence and then you understood why. And if you had done things differently, you could have been in his presence. So they all had this thing, 7 levels was perfection. And so that's where I got the term 7th level for sales training.
I love that.
Our communication, we have to perfect our communication. There you go.
Dude, it's a deep meaning, man.
It has a deep meaning. That goes
really deep.
Selling to me is far more than just making money. Everything is selling and persuasion. I was even on a podcast the other day and I was talking about this. You've read the Bible and stuff.
Absolutely.
So where it talks about the war in heaven, before the world was formed, there's this war in heaven, and a third of the host of heaven, accepted Satan's plan, went with Satan, the rest, stayed with God and his plan. But does anybody ever really think through what the war in heaven actually means? What's the meaning behind the war in heaven? Was it a war of guns? Were they shooting each other tanks, bullets, swords? Was it a war like we would think a war is? No, right? It was a war of words. It was a war of persuasion. It was a war of influence. So from before the world began, we're talking about influence and persuasion in our words. Yeah. So to me, communication prevents wars from happening. Yeah. Why do wars happen? Because two sides don't understand each other's point of view, and they both think they're right, and they can't compromise. Now, one side might be more wrong than the other, but they can't see each other's point of view. Stephen R. Covey, first seek to understand, then be understood. And communication can quite literally cause wars to happen because of lack of communication, bullying our point, or trying to understand their point of view. We don't necessarily have to agree, but if they feel like we're trying to understand their point of view, psychologically, it causes them to try to understand our point of view more.
It's a beautiful thing. And it's not manipulative.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite quotes, by the way. Stephen R. Covey, seek first to understand, then seek to be understood.
Exactly. And that's the way the ball game works. I mean, you guys should try it sometime. It's actually, I always bury my critics with kindness. I always make fun of myself. I hardly ever respond to people that respond to the reels and stuff, but there's, I just sometimes I just can't help myself. I'm like, oh, God, please, I know I shouldn't do this, but I have to say something. And they'll be like, yeah, this guy sucks, he's horrible. Who is he to tell us this? I'm like, I'll respond back. I'm like, oh, what would I know about selling? I only did this and this, but I must have got all the good leads, smiley face. And everybody will laugh at it, Or I'll be like, somebody will be like, oh man, I love your stuff. And I would train our social media team what to say. And I'm like, I'm not that cool. Smiley face. They're like, no, you're really cool, right? Say I'm mismatched. I'm not that cool. Yep. Smiley face. They're like, no, you are cool. So I love to, sometimes it's good to kind of put yourself down a little bit because people come to your rescue, right? And I find that the more you argue with critics, obviously they just get more defensive and they hate you even worse. So I'm like, I'd rather just neutralize them, or maybe they don't like me, but they don't really, they don't hate me. You know what I mean? And I can take somebody that's, we'll have some, the other sales trainer be like, oh, I completely disagree with everything you say, even though they've never been a client and they have no idea what you're talking about. Right. Yeah. And I'll have my people reach out to him to be on the podcast with me. And then we'll talk for 45 minutes and like, man, your stuff is really good. Like, this is awesome. And now I have an ally.
Yeah.
I could have like fought back and like, you suck and everything. But now I'm like, no, come on the podcast. Let's talk about the different conversations about sales and human behavior. And they get on there and they're just like, oh, this is really good. Actually, I actually like what you talk about. Now we're allies, So that's always the best way to do it in my mind.
I love that, man. Well, I've got a little acronym is the AAAs of selling you, like with dealing with objections or rejection. It's, first agree with them, side with them, and then ask a question to make sure, clarify, and then add value.
Yeah.
And then kind of that formula. But a lot of people skip the agreeing and then the asking for understanding it. It's kind of siding. And I always paint this visual of, pitching is like person here facing person here, and it's going against. It's combative. It's manipulative. It's aggressive. But true salesmanship is grabbing their hand and pulling and actually walking to their side and pointing, here's where we could go.
It's collaboration.
It's collaboration.
It's collaboration. And it's also, there's techniques that really open people up because, a lot of times, like, it's interesting because in reels, we just, as you just give little nibbles. It's like 0.00001% of our training content that our clients go through. So they don't understand before, after, they don't understand why. I mean, essentially you'll sit there and talk for 2 minutes and the editors like edit it down to 53 seconds or whatever. And so like, that's the point of view you're getting, but you don't understand what to do next. You don't understand why. Yeah. And so people have different perspectives. So it's challenging. If I was a sales trainer and let's say I only trained one industry, I can make all my reels like so specific, there'd never be any question. But when training in every industry, it's like, you got to make them generalized enough where it like a B2B salesperson where they're like, oh, that's really good compared to somebody that sells door to door, or maybe they sell cars. They'd be like, oh, that's very good. So you got to make them generalized enough, but still good enough where they see value.
So dude, this is one thing I wanted to geek out with you on is how do you like training over 160 industries in sales and doing it successfully?
Yeah.
Like what things are industry specific and what things are just can be generalized? Have you seen stuff that's like in like, oh, we should kind of stay out of that?
No, it's really easy for us because of the way our methodology works. NEPQ, neuro emotional persuasion questions. So basically we have there's 5 stages of that. Okay. So when I would go into an industry, people would always ask me like, dude, how did you become like the number one salesperson in B2B enterprise in debt relief? Like you got thousands of salespeople and you did that within like 9 months and you came from door to door, which is completely different. Well, I was like, it's easy for my brain because what I would go do in the interviews, the people recruiting me like, okay, well, what problems does your products or services solve? Yeah. Now, a lot of times the chief sales officer didn't know, which was really embarrassing. I'm like, how did they not know what problems? They're like, well, our thing does this and that. I'm like, no, I don't know what it does. I'm just saying like, what problems does it solve? Yeah. Like you're not selling the thing. Yeah. Like when I sold alarms, I wasn't selling the alarms. I was selling the results of what the alarm did, which protect them from the bad guys breaking in.
It's the what versus the why. I mean,
yeah. So I'd find out what problems does your thing solve? Your product, your service, maybe it's a training program, whatever it is. Then after I wrote down like the top 5 or 6, I would then say, well, what are the consequences for the prospect if those problems don't get solved? Most of the time, most couldn't answer. I'd have to go ask a top salesperson or a manager. Crazy. The VP of sales didn't know that. I'm like, how did they not know that? That's scary. And so I got the problems, and not just 1 or 2 problems. I'd go all the way down, like 5, 6, 7, 8 problems deep, right? Because I want to pull out any problem I can. Because the more problems I get them to see they have, the more likely they are to want to change.
Bigger that gap.
Yeah. And the bigger the gap. And so then I'd find, well, what are the consequences of each one of those problems if they don't solve it? And then I'd write down all the consequences. Then I would find out, how does the solution solve those? Yeah. Once I had that 3-step formula, then I knew, okay, my first questions are what we call connection questions. And the connection questions, whether I'm calling outbound leads, or let's say I have an inbound lead, if it's on virtual Zoom, or let's say if it's door to door, more cold calling, or on the phone, B2B cold calling, or maybe I'm meeting them in the home. Let's say if I'm selling HVAC or home improvement or whatever, or solar, or let's say I'm meeting them in an office or meeting in a hospital by some medical device, big industry trainer as well. I have to ask what are called connection questions that take the focus off me, immediately put it on them and get them to let their guard down. Funny. So now that I know the problems and the consequences and the solution, I can write out each stage. So then I can write out 3 or 4 connection questions. Then I can write out the next part is situation questions, because I have to help the prospect understand what their real situation is. And I have to understand what the real situation is. Because here's what I say. If you can't help the prospect understand what the real situation is, how do you build a gap to where they want to be if they don't know where they're at?
Where they're starting. Yep.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
So situation questions are more factual based. Like for solar, it'd be more like, let's say if you're in a market where there's multiple companies, and they're like, who do you use now for your energy? If you're in one market, it's more about like the usage, how long they've been home, more those type of situation questions. Like how much have they been making you pay lately? Or how much are the rate hikes? I know the bill. Tell me about your bill. I know for a lot of the year, it's pretty low, but what have they been making you pay lately? See, I shift that. Like, I know a lot of the year it's pretty low, but what have they been forcing you to pay lately with the rate hikes? See, I downplay. I know a lot of the year it's pretty. What have they been making you pay lately? Lean in with that softer tone, like serious tone, because it causes them to lower their guard. Because I'm admitting, I know a lot of the year they're pretty low, but what have they been making you pay lately? I do this with the hands. It builds a gap. And so then once I help them find out what their risk situation is, then I have to build the gap. Those are called what we call problem awareness, where we build a gap in their mind. We can't tell them what their problems are because we're biased. It just goes in one ear out the other, right? You're selling them something. They don't believe you. But my questions allow them to tell themselves what their problems are. I can even seed it in situation questions with more of a skeptical tone. I'm like, oh, what have they been making you pay lately? See, my skeptical tone it actually seeds in their brain that maybe they're overpaying. I'm not saying they are, but my tone triggers and puts
taking advantage of.
Puts it. What have they been forcing you to pay lately? So, Bill, I mean, they've been making him pay X, Y, Z. What have they been making you guys pay lately? Now I'm putting myself in between, if I'm in solar, putting myself in between like here they are, here's the power company, here's me in the middle, like I'm negotiating for you, type of thing. Now, so once I build that gap with problem awareness, it's not enough to help them. A lot of salespeople, like the prospect will tell them one problem and then they'll just stop. And they're like, here's how we solve it. The problem is you don't build a big enough gap. And so let's say the reason why a lot of people like in your industry, they'll make a sale and half of them never get installed, they cancel. It's because they find one problem and that's where they stop. And then that prospect figures out a way while they're gone next month, like, oh, that problem's really not that bad. But if I'm good enough, if I'm I always call it, you got a problem find. You got to be a problem finder before you're a problem. If they don't buy, you're not a problem solver. They don't buy, So if I can help them find 3 or 4 other problems they didn't realize or understand they had, even if they eliminate that one problem in their mind after I leave, they still got 3 more problems. And so they just stick to it because like, well, I can do this, but man, I really want to lock in the rate because of inflation and all the rate hikes. Like I'm just going to keep doing it because I want to lock in the rate. Like they might eliminate one problem by like, oh, we're going to turn down the temperature while we're gone. And, we're going to be blazing hot in the summers. We're just going to suffer through. They're still thinking about those rate hikes, protecting themselves against rate hikes, eventually not having to bill, right? So there's so many things now that I built that gap that it's almost impossible for them to cancel.
Well, dude, what's fascinating is the more that the better you are as a salesperson at conveying a problem and helping them see the enemy, right? The more they see you as the hero.
They trust you. Yeah, exactly. 100%. So
you don't have to, because a lot of people say, hey, here's the benefit. Here's where I'm going to get you. I'm the hero. Pick me. It's like, no. Paint the enemy. And as you paint the enemy, they will organically see you
as the hero.
Exactly.
That's going to save them. So what I was going back there is, like I said, it's not enough to help them find all these problems. You then have to get them to see what the future looks like when the problems are solved. Right. So when they see that, some people call it the future state. We call it their objective state. And we use what are called solution awareness questions. Now they're where the solution that solves all my problems. And then once I get them on that emotional high and they can see and feel what their future looks like, I quite literally want to rip that future away from them and ask them what we call a consequence question that triggers them to defend themselves on why they want to change and change now. So, I have one for solar. I brought it for you because I knew I wouldn't memorize it.
We got it pulled up.
This consequence question that we came up with for this company, like they are crushing it with this thing, but you have to set it up. Like if your consequence question, we'll have a few simple, consequence question is not working. Like, well, wait a minute, it's working for everybody in the company, but you. Well, it's because if you didn't build a gap from where they are to where they want to be with all these problems, how would they defend themselves on why they need to change if they don't even see that there's a gap? Consequence question can't land unless you're able to help them see what the gap looks like and feels like. So let's go back to problem awareness. And let's say the prospect, tells me something they don't like, the rate hikes, like, oh, I'm just getting tired of the rate hikes. They keep raising them up and blah, 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 blah. I immediately lean in like, well, I mean, do you want to have to keep paying the rate hikes if you didn't have to? See, what tone was that?
Concerned.
It's kind of a concerned /
skeptical,
confused. It's almost like concerned, skeptical, confused tone.
Yeah.
See how I verbal paced that out though, and I verbal paused. Now, what if I would have done it like this? Well, do you want to have to keep paying the rate hikes if you didn't have to? Well, I mean, they're not that bad. See, I say it so fast that the prospect has no time to internalize what I'm asking or saying. So it's a technique called verbal pacing and verbal pausing that triggers their brain to emotionally have to pay attention and stay engaged. Okay. And it causes them to internalize what you're asking and think deep about it. So I lean in with that concern. I mean, do you want to have to keep paying the rate hikes if you didn't have to? Well, no, if I didn't have to. See, I'm triggering a different emotion by verbal pacing it out and slowing it down with verbal pauses. It's called verbal pausing. So there you go. Like that. I'll give you this. So consequence questions are a little bit different. So with consequence questions, once you get them to see, and this is for every industry, but once you get them to see what the future looks like, we want to rip that away from them. We want to almost like, it's almost like we're pushing them away to get them to pull us back even further. Yeah. So I want to start off because I've got them on this emotional high with my last solution awareness. When they see the future, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm protected against the rate hikes. My bill's gone down 12% or whatever it is. Eventually I'm not going to have a bill. Like, it's so awesome. And then I'm like, okay, but here it is. So what happens if you guys don't do anything about this? Now, I want you to pay attention to my tone. So what happens if you don't do anything about this? They keep raising your rates every year like they have, but now you're, 70, 75 years old, still having to pay the bill every month. And now the bill is what? Yeah, it's 3 times as high, but now you're on a limited income. Like, how would you pay for it at that point? So notice my tone starts skeptical and fast, trigger the emotion, and then it starts to lean into more concern. And I'm slowing down. And
you're helping them internalize through these NAPQ questions the cost of doing nothing.
Yeah, because like I said, so see how, like if you're selling like the loan type where after 25 years, the loan's paid off. And let's say they're in their 40s, like 45, 50. Now this guy or girl is going to think, oh shit, if I'm on Social Security or limited income after I retire, and the rate hikes have been going up like really bad. Say I'm in California, the rate hikes have been going up. Geez, crazy. I just realized it doubled in the last 3 years. And if they just keep going up by like 8 or 9% on average per year in 30 years, like, shit, I'm not gonna be able to pay that. Oh gosh, I got to do this. Like it triggers them to like tell themselves like, oh my gosh, I'd be crazy not to do this. Like I would be an idiot. Right. Now, then I might even pull it away a little more. Okay. But for you, oh no, we have to, okay. Well, you certainly sound motivated. So I might even pull back. I mean, oh no, Jeremy, we definitely have to. I mean, you certainly sound motivated, but why not be, for you, like, why go solar now? Like, why not push it down the road? Like a lot of homeowners do who have to keep paying the rate hikes because, they don't know anything about solar. Well, the reason why we're not going to pay those rate hikes, like they're defending themselves. Okay, but for you, why look at going solar now? Like, why not push it down the road and keep paying the rate hikes like a lot of people do who don't know anything about solar? Yeah. Well, now they know everything about solar. Yeah. So they don't want to be like one of those people that keep paying the rate hikes because they don't know anything about solar. Well, the reason why we have to do it, see, now they're defending themselves on why they have to change, not me. See, I'm getting the prospect to do all the work, whereas traditional sales would be like, you got to do all the work. You got to do all the convincing. I'd rather get them to do all the work, them to sell themselves, because I'm not the one that has the problem. They do. I have the solution. Well,
dude, think of a doctor. The doctor's got all the experience. You go and see the doctor, he's asking questions. Yeah. Right? Yeah. He's just
guiding. See, the doctor automatically in society is viewed as a higher status. Whereas your disadvantage as a salesperson, because you're already viewed at a lower status. So when you come into that conversation, you have to come in where they feel, even in that first 30 seconds or a minute of, let's say, knocking on the door, calling on the phone, meeting on Zoom, in person, doesn't matter. First contact. You have to get them to feel that you have at least the same status as they do initially. That can only happen by getting them to let their guard down. And then throughout that conversation, by your questioning, your tonality, you start to raise your status in their mind, where by the end, they view you. It's called situational status. They view you as having a much higher status in what you're conversing about, where they view you as the expert and the authority. People always will buy from the expert or the authority because they feel like you understand their unique situation more than anybody else.
I love
even
that.
if you charge more.
Yeah. And it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of like, it's not about people buying because they like you. You're covering that by being relatable. You start there, but you finish with the authority and respect.
They trust you.
Trust you.
They trust the authorities. They trust the experts. They, you know, I always sum it up as like, you know, I had a friend tell me this once. I'm like, this is so true. He was like, you know, he's like, I'm not into politics, but he's like, you know, if President Obama like asked me to start a business, I'd probably say no, even though I like Obama. Like I want to go to the game with Obama. Like I want to chill at the game.
Yeah.
I want to have fun. I want to go to the party with Obama. But, you know, if Trump came to me and wanted to start a business, like I'm all in, even though I don't really like him. He's kind of an a-hole, but man, I'm all in because he's like, they trust him that he'd get him better result in the business world. Right. But he might like President Obama better because Obama's more cool. He's more relatable. He's maybe a better communicator. Yeah. But he doesn't view him at a higher status in the business world. He would view President Trump as the higher status, or it could be vice versa. I'm like right in the middle of all this mess. So nobody say anything.
Don't get too political here.
Don't get, I'm like, I got friends that are Democrats, Republicans. I'm like, hey, you guys just fight it out. Like I'll stay in the middle. We're just a sales training company. We'll still train you, whatever political affiliation you believe in. I can care less.
Dude, but here's the summary is, tell me if you agree. Trust trumps likability.
100% of the time, you will always buy from the people or company you trust can get you the best result because you feel that they understand your unique situation far more than anyone else does. You will always go with that. You will never buy. Now, all things being equal, if you trust both companies and salesperson 100% the same, which all things are very rarely equal. Yeah, if you like this guy over this other guy and they do the same thing and they get you the same exact result and same price, yeah, you might go with the person you like. Yeah. But all things are rarely the same. Yeah. Very rare.
I love that. Can I go back and just summarize really quick for the audience what you just said? You started with selling yourself, Jeremy. Like on like, I asked you, how do you train on any industry? And you started with, you went through all the questions you'd ask and the manager didn't know, like, hey, what's the problem for the customer? And you went deeper on that. Yeah. And I'm the same way when I get into something. I'm doing the same. I'm deep investigation, not on how to sell or not on what to say, but I'm studying the product and the why. What's the impact for the customer? I think of Simon Sinek, start with why. And I think that is at the core. And think of it, dude, if we have the cure to cancer and we have that product and I get rejected, am I going to give a damn? No.
Yeah, I'm going to keep talking. Nothing I can do for them. You know?
Yeah, you feel sorry for them, and you're going to keep talking to people. You have the conviction. Yeah, I see this being an issue in the industry. Tell me what you think. But companies training the how to sell is more important than the what, and that's a huge part of what you focus on. But part of what your training is getting people sold on the why.
Well, it's even. I love that. It's even like not just the why, but it's what's behind the why. That's what I always tell salespeople and companies training. They're like, you're not just. Like good salespeople can help prospects find problems. Yeah. Great salespeople can help them find the problems, but also help them see what the root cause of the problems are.
Fascinating.
But you're talking about the top 0.001% of all salespeople. Like we're talking about the legends like you is you help them not only find the problems, you also can help them find the root cause, but you also can help them see and feel how the problems are personally affecting them. And when you have that trio,
the application,
it's pretty hard not to buy.
Yeah, it is.
It's almost like it's impossible.
That's amazing, man. That's so gold. So you've got a lot of people in your program, a lot of different industries. So if we were to say, hey, Jeremy, top reps, like if we were to take like the average or the median of like the top 5%, we scrape off the top 5% of different industries in sales, which industries are making the most money? And this question for a stance of like somebody that's selling something they don't believe in, like, hey, where should I go? Yeah. And we shouldn't just be thinking of money, but as far as like, just to give perspective, what would you say the top earners are making?
It's a hard one. I'll give you some suggestions that we've seen. It's a really hard one because, we have a little bit over 18,000 some testimonials that we've, our team have collected, not like, oh, Jeremy's hair looks cool today, but like, oh, I used to make this, now I make this, and in all those industries. And quite literally, we have all 161 industries. We have salespeople that make multiple 6 figures a year now, high 6 figures, most of them even have salespeople that make 7 figures a year now, which some of those would be unheard of. Like we have medical device salespeople making 7 figures a year. Like, like extremely rare.
Yeah.
So I always hesitate, and I'll give you my opinion on this. I always hesitate because a lot of times people will post in our Facebook group, Sales Revolution, right? It's one of our larger ones, around 100,000. And somebody will post a testimony like, oh, you know, I'm in NEPQ 3.0 and I used to have a problem with getting prospects to let their guard down. And now I've learned this and this. And, you know, my closing percentages went up, 180%. I now make this or whatever they say. And you know what the first question is? People will respond. They'll be like 180 comments or whatever. They'll be like, what industry are you in? What industry are you in?
Because you missed the point.
It's the industry.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, that guy sells this. Like, let's say that guy sells insurance. What's the average insurance agent make? Like less than $3,000 a month. How is that guy making $70,000 a month now?
Yeah.
Not necessarily the industry. It's his skill level he's obtained. Now, that doesn't mean that, let's say, like look at your industry, your first industry, like pest control.
Yeah.
You were at the top of the ball game, right?
Yeah.
And you were kind of like maxed out, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know if you could have made like multiple 7 figures.
It would be very difficult.
You'd run out of time, right? Because you're just one of you, right? So, to that extent, like, okay, hey, if Nick's this talented and he's selling $5 magazine subscriptions door to door, he's probably not going to make $300,000 a year.
Yeah.
Now, could he go into like say SaaS and make that? Oh yeah, for sure. Or like life insurance or solar, you know? So, I always say these type of things with a grain of salt because I see so many top earners in really every industry. And most of it is not the industry, it's their skill level and their sales ability they've obtained. Okay. Now that doesn't mean like, let's say if I'm selling cars, we have car salespeople, the very top ones that make 500,000 plus a year.
Kind of cap, yeah.
But could they make a couple of $1 billion a year? I don't know. Probably
it's a little harder. Yeah.
Maybe, if they're selling like Lambos or Ferraris and they have that sales ability. Now, could they take that same skill level and go into solar and let's say make, 70, $80,000 a month? Yeah, probably for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I always say that with a grain of salt because people are like,
I love that.
They're rating for the 5 industries that Jeremy's going to say.
Take note. Well, dude,
take notes,
I think you answered that perfectly. And that's what I was hoping you'd say. Yeah. Because this is a problem with the sales industry and it's not to blame. Like we've all been there. The reason we work a job is to make money.
Yeah.
But if you can think about the impact and the serving people and get passion sold and then do some investigation and say, hey, do people make a lot of money in this? And in every industry, yes.
It would be disingenuous for me to list the 5 industries because a lot of people say, oh, it's the industry. They'll jump in that industry and their skill level stays the same and they bomb. And they're like, oh, I'm just not good at sales. Dude. No, it's your sales ability. You've got to learn a much more advanced sales ability than what you possess.
Well, here's how I balance out the 3 things: passion, skill set, opportunity. Yeah. And like I could be insanely good at selling something, but because I don't believe in it, right? Or if it's selling magazines, opportunity, not a good opportunity, right? Yeah. So if you can align those 3, and I'd say number 1, the skill set, right? Get that. And then, which applies, here's the beauty of your sales training is it applies to everything, right? Yeah. And so then from there, it's just find something you're passionate about, a company you believe in, a product you believe in, and a community you want to serve.
It's so true because the number one question we always get is like, hey, how do you guys duplicate in all these industries? Like, how do you ExxonMobil's a client now? How do you go into friggin' ExxonMobil?
Yeah, exactly.
With their division vice presidents and like get these results in those divisions, and then you go over to United Healthcare, the second largest healthcare company, who train their reps now. And like, how do you go duplicate a completely different industry, but you're getting like similar results? Or like Google AdWords, we trained through their divisions early on.
It's actually amazing.
It's because of the structure of NEPQ and how we understand like problems, consequences of the problems. How does solutions solve those? Then how do we get them to let their guard down? Connection questions. How do we help them find their situation? How do we help build a gap? Problem awareness. How do we get them to see what the future looks like? Solution awareness. How do we pull it back? Consequence. Then how do we get them to commit to take the next step? If I'm in, let's say, B2C sales, and let's say I'm selling solar and it's a you go to the house, it's a 1-call close. I'm going into my presentation and asking commitment questions to get them to commit to take the next step and purchase. Or let's say if I'm in a B2B selling environment, and let's say that I'm selling some AI device to a hospital that quite literally helps doctors that manually dictate their notes, now does everything for them, and it saves them 2 hours a day. And now they have 2 more billable hours a day, and the hospital makes 20% more revenue. So how do I get the hospital to take smaller commitments? Because that's more of like a longer sales cycle. How do I get them to take smaller commitments? Call those micro commitments that lead to the larger commitment of purchasing maybe 3-6 months down the road. How do you build urgency to take the smaller commitments faster? So that's one angle. Like when you go from B2C sales into B2B, depending on what you're doing, if you're selling like small SMB and I'm selling laundromats, I can probably go in there as a merchant processor and a one-call close. But if I'm selling like a, Fortune 500 company and, you got to meet with a C-level, and then you got to get the department heads involved and other influencers and decision makers who could kill the deal. Or maybe an influencer, let's say you're selling some type of cybersecurity, and let's say that their, chief technology officer built his own system and now he feels threatened by yours, but his isn't that working. He can't make the decision, but he can influence the CEO to strike it down. So how do you get him on board? So you have to understand the different motivations of the different department heads that can't even make the decision, but can influence the decision maker. See, that's another trick of the ball game you have to learn in B2B, and how to navigate yourself through the organization and find out and get this original C-level executive to open up and tell you who those other people are, and not only tell you, but how to train them to get them onto the next step demo or whatever, and how to just, it's just a different ball game that you have to match. The same questioning and skill level and tonality comes in play, but how do you get them to feel far more urgency where, I went into, one industry, B2B, that I sold in, enterprise, and they're like, oh, the sales cycle is 9-12 months on average. I'm like, well, why does it have to be 9 to 12 months? I'm like, why? Tell me why. They have problems.
Again, asking the questions.
My solution solves those. Like, why can't it be a 3-month sales cycle? And that's what I did. I like speeded it up because I could get them to build a much bigger gap in their mind where they felt far more urgency to want to change now, and they would push through legal. They would argue with legal. They would make concessions, and they would just ram it through because they felt that pain so bad. Yeah. Whereas most salespeople are just asking surface level questions.
Jeremy, dude, this is a deep thing.
Okay.
A lot of everything you're teaching is mastering questions. What I love about you is that you're a walking, talking billboard of exactly that. Not just on the sales side, but your whole career success has been it stems from questioning the norm. And I admire that. It has to
become who you are.
Yeah.
I look at, like, I always wonder, like, how does like Leonardo, the famous actor, how did he become so good? Well, the top actors and actresses, while they're filming that, it's like they become who that character is. I think a lot of times they have relationship problems because they become different people on a dime, right? But that's why they're so great. And so as a salesperson, where's the best place to practice persuasion influence? Not just when you get on the call or on the doors or in person.
All the time.
It's all the time. It becomes who you are. Like I always talk about, like, hey, you got to learn how to use verbal cues to bridge from question to question so it doesn't sound scripted. Like, so when somebody's talking, like, and like, now you're not doing that every 2 seconds. I'm exaggerating, but every 8 to 12 seconds. Really? Okay. Oh, but what happened next then? See, but O is a verbal cue that bridges into my next question. Most salespeople ask a question, and then at the end they're like, okay, cool. Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. Let me ask you, John. And it sounds like scripted sales questions, but I'm like, oh, what happened then? Really? And what about the tension? I'm not understanding that. So like, I'm bridging using verbal cues from question to question, where it just feels so natural to the prospect. They don't even feel like they're being sold.
That's the
and
beauty
it's
of it.
almost like they thank you. Like, this is where you get really good. They thank you for you letting them pay you to solve their problems and get what they want. That's what the kiss of death was. Anytime I ever heard somebody saying, oh, you could sell anything to anybody, I'm like, shit, they're not going to buy.
Yeah.
That's a kiss of death.
It is.
I triggered something that caused them to view me as a salesperson. It's going to be much harder now.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you'd be a great politician. I've gotten that to some people. I'm like,
gosh.
That's the worst thing you can tell me,
sell
man.
ice to an Eskimo. How many of those people bought?
Dude,
very
zero.
Rare.
Yep.
Yeah,
You did something wrong. That's never a compliment.
Oh, that's
never a compliment.
Death if you're a salesperson. Like, if you get that compliment, you're like, hey, I've triggered some sales resistance, and more than likely, they're probably not going to buy.
I love it, Jeremy. Yeah. ABC, always be closing. I think we have the same opinion on this, obviously. Yeah. But how do you feel about what should the new mantra be if you had to make one?
I obviously you have to close.
Yeah.
I want to get them to close themselves. So
there we go.
I get ABCs of closing sound. It's like cliche. It's like, put that coffee down. Coffee's for closers. The movie. I love that. But we focus on the ABDs of selling. Always be disarming. So from the first words out of your mouth to the questions you ask and how you ask them, you have to get the prospect to continually keep their guard down, because the moment, you can tell when the guard goes up, right? You can tell by their body language. If you're on the phone, you can tell by the shift in their tone, especially if you're a person, you just can tell when you start reading body language and like you can hear their tone. I always say you got to listen to what they mean, not just what they say. So like if a prospect, if I ask a commitment question, like, do you feel like this could be the answer for you? Yeah, sure. Well, some people are like, okay, great. Let me show you what to do. What I just heard him mean is he's uncertain and I've got more work to do. You seemed a bit hesitant when I asked you that question. What's behind that? Well, I don't know if I heard he's hesitant. I heard he's not, he's not certain. And when the brain is uncertain, that's typically when objections happen and you lose the deal. So I heard he's not ready. Whereas most salespeople would be like, he's ready. Whose name do you want the contract to be? Like, wait, I didn't say I was ready to buy. Now you triggered more sales.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Dude, I love it. We don't have to close them. They close themselves. We don't have to overcome objections. We hedge them. We bring them up at a time.
Yeah, because if you build such a big gap where they view you as like the authority, the expert, because you're still going to have some concerns.
Yeah.
We really teach salespeople how to prevent most of them from happening in the brain, but you'll still have some. Right. And so, if you've built such a big gap and they view you as the authority, it's so much easier to help them overcome it, because they view you as like working with you to overcome it, not viewing you as like he's trying to hammer me to make money off me.
Win his way of thinking, win me over to his way of thinking. I love that, dude.
Exactly. It was a pleasure being on your show, man.
Thank you. Oh, it's my pleasure. Pleasure's mine. Yeah. Thanks for coming out.
And if they want to, I know we didn't get really, deep into a ton of questions, but if they want to learn more of those questions, they're welcome to go to one of our Facebook groups. You might even be in it yourself. I know. Have them go to salesrevolution.pro. That's the one we'll put them in. There's a lot of solar people, a lot of door-to-door people in there too. I mean, there's about 100,000, but I'd say at least 10% are kind of in that door-to-door space.
Love
so
it.
They're welcome to join that. We do some Q&As, some different we give them nibbles in there, training, and they're always welcome to get this book. The book, the book's not going to triple your income. I hate to tell that to everybody, because you read this book and your brain's going to remember about in 48 hours after you read it, it'll retain about 19% the way your brain works, and in about a week it'll retain about 9%, and in about 30 days a little bit under 3%. But it'll give you a good start. We put some. I always was annoyed by sales books early on that I'd read, and I was like, wait a minute, they just said the same thing 17 times. And I didn't learn anything. Like, I feel more brain dead, right? You ever read a sales book like that? You're like, that was so horrible. Or like, it was all theory. I'm like, well, wait, what do I say? I need to know what I need to ask, not just like, this theory sounds good. So we wanted to put a lot of tactical training at different questions, why you're asking them, what's the psychology behind it. So
I love that.
They can get this on barnesandnoble.com, or it's in most Barnes & Noble stores. But
Amazon too,
you can, but we have a big deal with Barnes & Noble. So
nice.
If I find out you got it from Amazon, I'm going to be very angry. So if you get it from Barnes & Noble, it's like 20 cents more, 30% more. We would be very grateful. There you go.
Barnes & Noble it is. I love it, man. Well, thank you for coming on, Jeremy. Seriously. This is awesome, man.
Awesome.
Excited to talk more about this.
And they can always, if they want to follow us on IG, we do a lot of reels on IG. We do like 200 freaking reels a month on
Jeremy
Instagram.
Lee Minor.
It's a verified account. We have about 600,000 followers on that account. So that's a good one. You follow me there too. I can tell by some of the questions you ask. I'm like, oh, he's following me on Instagram. Oh yeah. I can tell. Yeah. Dude, you're awesome, man. Hey, congratulations on your success, dude. Like, being one of the top solar salespeople.
Thanks,
like, that takes, I know what it takes, man. Like, I remember myself back in the trenches. Like, it takes freaking grit. It takes determination. It takes commitment. And it takes like always wanting to learn more skills, like all the time.
I love that,
My good friend, Bradley, we were talking about before, we have one of our training portals with this company. He always says, is training something you did, or is training something you do? Well, top 1% people in anything, training is something they do all the time. Athletes, all the time training, right? Business leaders, all the time training. Top surgeons, always training. Average doctors, average, business owners, average athletes, average salespeople, average coaches, they just stop. They think they know it all. Their ego gets in their way.
I love that. It's about who you become, not just what you're doing.
Yeah. To me, I'm still learning.
I love that.
The art of persuasion and influence. Like, I feel like I know this much compared to like, hey, I'm like, God, please let me go to like, I'm at least like late 80s, because like, if I can like
take that long.
10 times what I know now, that's what I want to go out. Like, I'm just giving me enough time to like, you know, instead of only knowing 4%, like if I can get up to 40%, I'd be really happy.
I love that, Jeremy. Dude, I love that perspective.
Yeah.
That's going to be humbling for a lot of people to hear that.
Never learning, man. You got to be a sponge. Like, you want to be the best, you have to thirst for knowledge.
Yeah.
Like, I thirst for knowledge every day. Like, if there's a new course, even if I'm like, no, that sales trainer's not very good, but I know there's something good in there. And I like, oh, you know, that question's a really good question, but if you tweak it with this word and you ask it with this tone, it's going to work better.
Yeah.
And boom, there you go. You're always going to get something. So I study everything, man.
Dude, I love that. In some way, every person is your superior, and so you can learn something from them.
You always can learn from them. Like, the moment you stop learning is the moment. It's cliche.
You're coasting. You're going downhill.
You're just going to get average.
Yep.
Like, you'll never stay the same. You'll never stay great. You'll never be on top. Like, Steph Curry will never be on top if he just stopped training today.
If you got complacent.
Slowly, you know, wither away and nobody would remember him.
I love that, man. Dude,
Thanks
this
for
has
having me
been
on the show, bro.
Epic.